You say you're tired, burnt out, overwhelmed. You say you need a break, a change, a reset. You run to new jobs, new cities, new habits, new distractions. But no matter where you go, something follows. A quiet unrest, a subtle tension beneath the surface. A voice that whispers, "You're not where you're supposed to be." And maybe you think it's the job or the relationship or the pressure of your routine. But what if the thing you're trying to escape isn't outside you? What if it's within? Carl Jung understood this well. He believed that what we fear the most is not danger, but our own depths. Not failure, but self-knowledge. Because to truly know yourself, you must stop running. And that, for many people, is the most terrifying act of all. You've spent years crafting an identity, smart, stable, self-aware. You've mastered the language of productivity, of growth, of wellness. But deep down, you know you're performing. You know there's a gap between how you live and what you feel. You call it stress. You call it confusion. But Jung called it something else, a signal from the unconscious. The unconscious is not some distant, irrelevant force. It is the part of you that remembers what your conscious mind has chosen to forget. Your earliest pains, your unmet needs, your buried truths. They don't disappear. They wait, and they surface in strange ways. They show up in your patterns, in your defensiveness, in your avoidance, in the relationships you attract, and the ones you destroy. Jung believed that every time you avoid discomfort, you deepen your unconscious wounds. Every time you choose peace over truth, you widen the gap between your persona and your soul. Because healing doesn't begin with fixing the outer world. It begins with asking, what am I afraid to feel? You say you want clarity, but clarity requires confrontation. And most people don't want confrontation. They want comfort. So they stay busy. They stay numb. They call their distractions self-care. But all the while, they are haunted by a question they cannot answer. Why does it still feel like something is missing? That question is your mirror. And if you're brave enough to look into it, you will see what you've been running from. Not laziness, not failure, but grief, anger, shame, the emotions you were never allowed to express, the memories you've edited or erased, the truth you've labeled too much to hold. Jung said that neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering, and what most people call burnout is unresolved inner conflict. It's the weight of an unlived life, the cost of playing roles that never belonged to you. You weren't born afraid of your emotions. You were taught to be. Taught that anger is dangerous, that sadness is weakness, that desire is shameful, that silence is strength. And so you became good at surviving. You became who you were expected to be. You learned to predict others' needs before your own. You learned to anticipate rejection before it arrived. You learned that to be loved, you had to be less. And Jung would say, this is not your fault. But it is your responsibility now, because every unhealed wound becomes a compass. It leads you in circles. It leads you into chaos until you stop and face it. The truth is, you are not lost. You are avoiding the path that leads inward. Because that path is messy. It's non-linear. It dismantles the story you tell about yourself. It asks you to feel what you've long buried. But it is the only path to peace that lasts. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to meet yourself. the self that's beneath the roles, the self that's still waiting to be heard. That's what Jung meant by shadow work. Not self-improvement, self-integration. To bring the lost pieces of your psyche back into the light. To say, yes, this is also me. The anger, the jealousy, the longing, the pain. Not to act on it blindly, but to listen to it. To ask it, what do you want me to know? Because the truth is, your shadow does not wish to destroy you. It wishes to free you. From shame, from illusion, from self-betrayal. You say you want peace, but real peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the result of internal alignment. When the parts of you that were silenced are finally given a voice. And the process is not clean. It is not linear. There will be grief. Grief for the years you spent performing. Grief for the love you couldn't receive. Grief for the dreams you abandoned too soon. But there will also be freedom, because once you stop running, you realize the thing you feared the most was never as powerful as your avoidance made it. And suddenly, the war within begins to quiet. Not because the pain is gone, but because it is finally being seen. You see, the unconscious does not speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in dreams, in symptoms. It speaks through your fatigue, your procrastination, your anxiety. It speaks through the repeated relationship patterns you claim to hate, but continue to choose. It speaks through your resistance to stillness. You think you're lazy, but laziness is often grief in disguise. It's the body saying, I can't move forward with this weight inside me. It's the spirit saying, I need you to stop pretending. And you keep trying to motivate yourself with shame, but shame never heals anything. It only drives the wound deeper. Jung would urge you not to fight yourself, but to listen. What if the version of you who can't seem to get it together is the version of you that's finally refusing to fake it? What if this inner unrest isn't failure, but the beginning of truth? You've lived so long as a mask, polite, controlled, functional. But the truth doesn't live in the mask. The truth lives in the moments you suppress, in the tears that don't fall, in the questions you don't ask. In the "I'm fine," you say, when your chest is caving in. Carl Jung did not romanticize the unconscious. He respected its power, because when we ignore it, we become its puppet. But when we face it, we become whole. You keep calling it bad luck, but maybe it's just a life guided by blind repetition. You repeat what hasn't been resolved. You chase people who feel familiar, not because they're good for you, but because they match your oldest emotional wounds. You pursue perfection, not because you value growth, but because your inner child still believes they must earn love to deserve peace. You silence yourself in rooms that make your skin crawl, because somewhere along the line you learned that truth is dangerous. But what if you didn't? What if truth is what sets you free? Most of us live with what Jung called psychic splits. A part of us wants love, another part doesn't believe we deserve it. A part of us wants change, another part fears who will become. A part of us craves rest. Another part panics at the thought of being unproductive. These splits are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of conflict between who you are and who you were taught to be. And you can't think your way out of this war. You must feel your way through it. Feel what you've been avoiding. Feel what your culture told you to deny. Feel what your ego insists you're above. Because real strength is not control. It's capacity. Your capacity to feel shame without collapsing into it. Your capacity to feel grief without running from it. Your capacity to let discomfort speak instead of shutting it down. And this is why most people never heal. Because healing asks you to slow down, to sit in rooms you've avoided your entire life, to visit memories you swore you'd never return to admit, I didn't deserve that. I was hurt, and I've been pretending ever since. But once you say that, something unlocks. A door opens, not to ease, but to honesty. And honesty is the beginning of peace. You are not weak because you feel deeply. You are not broken because you can't push through. You are not a failure because your coping strategies stopped working. You are awakening. And awakening doesn't look like bliss. It looks like unraveling. Jung knew that transformation is not a glow-up. It's a breakdown. The breakdown of illusions, the breakdown of identities that were never truly yours. The breakdown of dreams you inherited, not chose. And what comes after the breakdown is space. Space to become. Space to choose. Space to meet the self that's been waiting beneath the noise. This isn't the kind of journey that others can always witness. Most of it happens in silence, while doing the dishes, while lying in bed staring at the ceiling, while crying alone at 2 a.m., while having a conversation with your inner child in the bathroom mirror. It happens in moments where you finally stop lying to yourself. When you say, I am not okay. I don't like the life I've built. I need something more honest, more real, more aligned. And it's terrifying, because once you know that, you can't unknow it. You can't go back to sleep. And you might lose people. You might lose comfort. You might lose a version of yourself you spent decades constructing. But what you gain is freedom. Freedom not from pain, but from illusion. Freedom not from struggle, but from pretense. And the path to that freedom is the same path you've been avoiding, the path inward. You've looked everywhere else, but now it's time to look here, into the mirror, into your silence, into the shadow. Because what you're really running from is the self that's finally ready to be found.